Hey, everybody. Um, my name is Chris Blankenhorn. Most of you know my work, but don't know me. I am the social media and tech director for Hawkins Walker 2020, um, and I'm here today to do the third and final for now workshop in a series of systems workshops, systems and social media workshops coming out of the campaign. Um, so the title of today's workshop is social media for grassroots organizations. And in that I'm primarily talking to green parties, independent socialist groups, um, you know green campaigns, uh, but also when a lot of small um, community organizations, even small not-for-profits. Uh, these kind of organizations, if they're not part of the institutional not-for-profit complex, um, they have the same kind of issues that we have as small third parties. So that's why I went with grassroots organizations because um, a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today aren't only applicable in your local Green Party, but maybe applicable in the local community group that you work with, the local not for profit that you work with. Um, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll start off with what this workshop isn't. And it's not going to tell you how to go viral. If you use that word, you've pretty much let us know that you're not quite sure what you're talking about when you're talking about social media. It's not going to tell you what to post. It's not going to give you a silver bullet to overcome the work of actually organizing and building a base, which is a really kind of terrifying misconception that I see a lot on the left in the in the progressive sphere, is this idea that posting on social media, fighting with people on Twitter is an equivalent to doing on the ground organizing. And so, I think it's really important that we, get past that misconception really, really quick. Social media is a tool that can give access to potential supporters. It can allow efficient communication and engagement with current supporters, but it's a tool. Social media is an organizing tool that has to be connected in with real world organizing, with real world work, and that can be real world digital work, but it has to be connected with actual work, or it's just it's just an illusion. It's just speaking into the void. The level of organizing that social media alone can create is basically a voter, right? From a green perspective, um, social media posts, um, might create a voter. A voter might see it. That voter might, be convinced by it to then cast their vote on election day for your candidate. So, if all you have is a social media game, you might be able to create a voter. But let's be honest about voters, right? Voters are only useful to us once every year or two. Uh, Voters, the extent to which they actually engage with us is in the ballot box, which is a even that is not a direct engagement, right? It's a support from afar. So without organizing and an onboarding component accompanying it, that's the limitation of social media, right? It can create someone that supports you, but if all they have is your social media posts, which are pretty one directional if alone, then that's kind of where they're stuck, right? Because social media has to be tied in to our on the ground work, right? It's got to be tied into an onboarding component. Um, you have to have that sustained contact, that relationship building, and an actual operation in which to bring someone into, right? If your organization is going to grow, there has to be an organization, right? There has to actually be something that people can engage in, and social media alone can't create that. Without it, social media alone, it's not even a very useful tool. So you know, that's the problem, right? You don't get real contact information from social media. There are ways you can get it and things like that, and we'll get into that later. But when someone sees and likes your social media post, you see a like, and that's about where it ends. You don't actually have contact with that person. You just got a passing, hey, good job, as they drove by and continued on to the next thing. Um, so, I really think that for Greens and grassroots organizations, it's absolutely essential that they understand that social media can be a very, very, very powerful tool. It can help level the playing field. It can help democratize things in our operations, but there has to be an on the ground operation. There has to be a real organization attached to it for social media to be worth anything, right? So why do we use social media? Right? I just said it can be a very powerful tool. Why do we use it? How is it a tool? So it can help us reach our current supporters. It can help us spread our message to new people. It can help us bring in new people. Right? It plays a large number of roles. Right? You need to be communicating with your supporters. You need to be telling them what they're doing, how they can get involved, where you're going to be next. I'm on the board for a community arts program in my city, and I got up at 6 in the morning and worked the farmers market till 1 today, and multiple people came and said, "I knew you guys were here because I saw it on Facebook." Right? Um, and they came to us. They found us. I want to say at least one of them bought or gave us a donation, or bought some art or gave us a donation. So, if as long as it's attached to that on the ground organization, social media is great. And by doing that, we reached out to current supporters, people who already knew about us, um, and they were able to find out, hey, I can go see them, I can go buy some art, I can go help them hopefully raise enough money to get a building, a space of their own, and be able to have a permanent space to provide art education for kids. um, we were able to use social media to make that connection and bring people in and have conversations. um, while we were at the table, many people did not know who we were, and we have cards that we can give them. They can find us on social media. There were people who were at the table on their phones finding us on social media because they wanted to support our work, right? And so because of social media, when we met this new person, there was a really easy way. Hey, if you just want to know about more about this, go find out, find us on social media, and you'll always be up to date at where we're at. um, so we can meet new people, or we can use it to help onboard new people and keep our supporters um, informed, and we can use it to spread our message, right? This is on the social media of a 2020 presidential candidate, a founder of the Green Party. So we have a message. And we want to get it out, and that goes to getting it out to our current supporters, to Greens, to progressives. We regularly write blog posts and things, policy papers, media releases, that kind of give what Howie and the Green Socialist and the movement's perspective is on these things, so we can use it to get out our message, and that's super important. Um, but we're getting out our message. We're coming in contact with new people, but as I said before, social media doesn't really give us the direct line of contact, right? Um, Social media just kind of gives us the ability to increase our likes and things like that. We'll talk about those specific stats and things later. Um, but it gives us a really loose connection to someone, right? And we don't need loose connections. We need connections that we can build into real relationships of trust, because that's what it takes to do real organizing work. When I'm talking about organizing, being connected to underground organizations, that means deep canvassing. That means public engagement. That means being active in your community, both in your organization's work and in allied and supporting organizations work. Um, but so to do that, we need to engage people and to bring them in and have them doing more work within our organizations, right? Because that's the goal. Every Green Party I know is you know pushed on by overworked volunteers, right? We're overwhelmingly volunteers. The National Party has a few staffers. Some lucky states, like my state in Illinois, have part-time staffers. But overwhelmingly, Green Parties are ran by volunteers. And so we really need people to, the key to building a grassroots party is bringing in more people, right? We're grassroots parties because we're small, but we're trying to build into, mass membership parties, hopefully. And so mass membership organizations where people and bottom up movement or organizing, we could add it from the grassroots nature, um, is what our goal is. So that requires bringing in people and taking some of that load off. It's hard to do that when all you have is a social media contact. So a big part of what we have to do as social media managers, and it's a very it's not spoken of very much, and it's different for us. If you work for a mainstream Democrat or one of the the institutional not-for-profit front groups, you get access to lists. You can buy contacts. You can buy data. Um, but for most grassroots organizations, the money to spend, getting contact lists and things like that just isn't there. And it's probably questionable for most groups whether it's the best use of their money, right? Uh, those lists are generally cold lists, and you can kind of narrow them, but it's probably not the most efficient way to go about things for most groups. Um, so we need to get, an essential part of being a grassroots social media manager is bringing in new contacts, bringing in, not just getting the like from someone, because remember that like doesn't come with a phone number, that like doesn't come with an email address. You can go find it and get it. You can, if you've got Nation Builder, it's scraping all of your, Facebook content and trying to match it up with people's phone numbers and things like that. I'm sure that the van and things that the Democrats use do it similarly, or with voter rolls. So you can get to it, but for most of us, that's not part of our operations. So how do we get contact info from our new supporters, from people who like what we do, but only follow us on social media? How do we convert them from a social media follower to a contact? Because once you're a contact, we can reach out to you about events. We can reach out to you about volunteer or organizing opportunities. We can send you donation, please. We can keep you informed. Um, so, and John H., that was the beginning of the thing. That we needed, that social media is absolutely useless if it's not connected to a real organizing effort. So we need to bring in new people. How do we convert them? How many people have signed an online petition? Most people. The reality of online petitions is they're almost never turned in, right? Online petitions are almost I'd say 99% are data harvesting exercises. We want your email, right? And people are, that means when you see, Holly Hawkins 2020 put out an issues survey, we were trying to get new contacts. That's not to say that we didn't do detailed analysis of, on that data. I did a lot of it, and it was nice to know that we were right on the issues. It didn't show when voters went to the polls, but the majority on all of our issues surveys, whether general, whether youth, whether done in 2019 or 2020, climate and healthcare were always 1-2. They were always 2/3 to 3/4 of people said that those were one of their top 3 issues, right? So major issues for most people. and that data was great. That data helped us. We used that data internally for sure, but we also got lots and lots of contacts from those surveys, right? Petitions, surveys, having contests. If you're a green organization, or an organization that supports ranked choice voting, have ranked choice votes, right? Give us your email, rank your thing, boom. People like doing it. It normalizes ranked choice voting, and you get a contact, right? And that's someone that you know that is aligned with some of your, with at least some of your values, right? They're with you on this issue most likely, and that's another major area, right? I said that people don't turn them in, and it's true. When you do if you did a ranked choice voting, most of the time, if you saw a ranked choice voting petition on a social media page and you signed it, it wasn't going to get turned in. But that does tell you if you're an organizer, right? I'm not going to turn it in, but now I know someone in my community that is supportive of ranked choice voting, and I have a contact for them. And so we can start having organizing meetings. I can start to engage them and get the touches I need to turn someone into an organizer, to turn them out to events, to start lobbying for change in our legislature, to run for office, to try to change it themselves. It all starts with getting that contact. If you don't have the real direct contact with a real person, it doesn't get you very far. So it's a really underscored part of what people think about with social media when it comes to smaller groups, smaller organizations, smaller campaigns. We've really these are tools that we need to use to build our lists, right? Because we're trying to go from grassroots to mass membership. That means we got to start talking directly to people, and to do that, we need a direct link for them, not just that they like our social media page. I guess a quick lay of the land on the different platforms. You've got Facebook. It's got awful algorithms. It's got punishing ads. But one thing I will say about Facebook, it's probably the one platform where people still connect with others that are in their actual community, right? Most of your Twitter, and that's even people who have national, friends lists that have people from all over the country or world on their friends list. They're still friends with people in their community. They're friends with their neighbors on Facebook. They might not follow each other on Twitter, and who knows which of your neighbors has Instagram or TikTok or things like that, right? So, there's a lot of bad things about Facebook. But for community organizing, it's a place where there's still a local regional community generally for most people's Facebook group, profiles and things. So it's important to engage there. Twitter, I like to call the most American of all platforms. Quantity over quality. Who says the most, the loudest, wins. So, I have a big criticism that I think a lot of Greens spend way too much time on Twitter, spend way too much time in Twitter wars, and those Twitter wars fundamentally don't change anything. They're not, engaging with people in a way that is positive and that is generally working, and it's by design of the platform. You have such a limitation on your characters. You have such a limitation on how you can communicate that it really does reward emotion and volume and volume, both in terms of quantity and actual how loud you are expressing yourself. But at the same time, on the other side of that, Twitter gives you direct access to journalists. It gives you direct access to decision makers. It gives you direct access, to corporations and things like that for applying pressure. The best fundraising day in the Howie Hawkins campaign was when Twitter suspended our account, right? And that was not because what fueled it was the rage of Twitter, right? So there may be a lot of, like Facebook, there may be a lot of bad things about Twitter. But there's also some good things. These are corporate platforms that we're talking about, right? These are not user ran democratic platforms. These are not platforms that are made to help us make substantive change, right? These are platforms that have an interest in the status quo. So we've always got to keep that in mind. They all have major limitations, and a lot of it is fundamentally that these are capitalist entities that we're trying to use to build socialism. So they're not exactly our friends. Instagram is a very visually focused platform where, as I said, Twitter was quantity over quality. Instagram is the opposite. It's quality over quantity. It's very you can't post links. You can post them, but they don't link. You've got very short 60-second video limits. So it's a very constrained platform. But that said, it's a rapidly growing platform, and if you've got good graphic design, if you've got good, if you're good at bringing your message into these relatable, graphics and memes and short videos and things like that, that it's a absolutely a great place. TikTok, video based, very youth centric. Rewards being funny. I would not suggest that many green, a random green local just kind of jump into TikTok and expect success. And not to be ageist, but find your youth. Find the young people. So. There's that I see Amy Sachs just talked about, said, I wonder if making platforms public entities would help. There's public and TV and radio, which gives us the short. From Howie's platform, these social media platforms need to be socialized. They need to be brought under democratic control of their users. They need to, let's be honest, most of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, because it's Google, these places are about collecting our data. They're about collecting information that can be monetized on us. We use them for free because we're the product. And so the only way to remove that is to bring them under user control, bring them under democratic control, to socialize them, similar to utilities. So I saw that in the comments, and that has been Howie's position since the campaign. So a little deeper into each of them, a lot on Facebook, because it's one that it's one that allows some things that others don't, such as ads. But I get Facebook invites all the time from green and socialist organizations that are nowhere near me, that I have no relationship with. I know of de facto non-existent organizations or local chapters that have hundreds or thousands of likes on Facebook. So what does that mean, right? What does that get you? I get that it looks better, right? It looks better than having a few dozen. But likes don't really mean anything to likes don't mean anything to the Facebook algorithm. It's not don't really, it's they don't. They don't play into it as far as we know. So while hundreds of likes may look better, it also means that, so the way Facebook works, just to, a really fast overview of their algorithm, how it works. With Facebook, when you post something, you get a certain number of likes. The next post they expect to have, a similar or a certain amount of engagement, not likes necessarily. Next up, they expect a similar. Next up, they expect a similar. And the reach that you get before they cut you off and stop showing it to people in their feeds organically is dependent kind of on that average, right? You've got a baseline, and that's what you can expect per post. If you jump up, and you don't mean it again, but you stay the same, your reach will kind of level up at a higher level. And so it's a continuing kind of average of what they'll allow. And once you hit that reach cap, The only way that someone will see your post is to go directly to your page, or if someone shares it organically. If someone shares it on their own to their followers, then you'll get to see that. Um, so with Facebook, those likes don't really mean anything. So, and you have a limited reach, right? They're throttling you after a certain point. So if you have 1,000 likes, maybe they're throttling you at 500. So that means only half of your people, right? Half of your supporters are seeing your posts without you paying, and that's what they want. Um, and so when you have 1,000 followers, but 700 of them are people that aren't really ever going to be involved in the organization, they're just distant allies. What it means is less and less of your people, the people that need to see the information on social media, less and less of them will see it. Um, so you can actually hurt yourself by having everyone you know around the country like your page, because then the people that don't see it get lost. They don't get the message. Um, and like I said, these people aren't going to grow your organization. They're not going to take on tasks. They're not going to become leaders. So what's the benefit of having them in your audience? That's one thing. One of the reasons I don't like I don't accept those likes is one, like I just talked about, I don't think it's beneficial. But two, I don't need my feed filled up with people sharing the same, locals sharing the same post by Howie. I don't need to have that filling up my. It's not useful information to me anyway, so I don't really want to see it. Um, but what is important with likes is high likes from within your community, within the area that you're doing your real work, because that means that you can actually reach more of these people. The higher ratio that you can have of locals to outsiders, then that's how it is. The likes only matter if they're real, right? Um, so if likes don't matter, what page likes is what I'm talking about there, basically. What does? And what does is how many and how fast people engage with your content. So the more people, if you want people to see it as soon as you can. One way to do this is to encourage your supporters to go to your page and choose to see it first. There's a little button up in the top where you can say, "Show me page from this content at the top of my, or from this, show me content from this page at the top of my page." So you can do it like that. You can, then people are getting it, but they really exponentially benefit early likes, early comments, early shares. So if the key to having something get big is those earlies. If you can get those things hitting early, then you get a really big boost to your reach that they'll allow, and that'll help you do it. So this brings us, I guess, because I've talked about limiting and reach and all that. And Facebook is, so for all social media, it really, the key for us as Grassroots organization is consistent and quality content. Consistent and quality content. We can't pay for growth. It'll bankrupt us. We can't pay for likes and things like that the way that the major parties can, the way that capitalist funded organizations can. It just won't work for us. So we have to do it differently. We have to grow organically. And that means that we have to be ready for a slow growth, right? We have to be ready for a slow and steady growth, not the big jumps that that we might like to see. We need to be growing organically, and that means consistent and quality content. Facebook will punish you for not posting. The easiest way that you could have a page that had a great stats that was really reaching people, don't post for a week and they're going to just ding you to almost uselessness. And so consistent posting on Facebook is really key. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? On all of these platforms, don't reinvent the wheel. If you don't have the capacity to post every day, to post original content every day, come to Howie's page. We're posting multiple times a day. Go to the National Green Party's page. We're posting, they're posting more regularly now. Go to your state Green Party's page and check it out. Right? Share share some relevant content. But if you're sharing other people's work, make sure you're putting in your perspective. Make sure you're not just carrying on. Um, make sure you're not just carrying on uh, someone else's message, right? You want to tweak it and use it for us. Um, so consistent quality content, ads on Facebook. There are times when there are times when ads are useful. That ads can do really good things, but you've got to keep in mind what we're up against, right? Biden spent about $90 million on Facebook ads in 2020, and about 60 million on Google. Trump spent 85 million and 56 million on Facebook and Google. Right? We can't we can't compete with that. And what it shows is that they're not doing the real organizing work, right? What we talked at the very top of this workshop, I talked about how social media has to be. It is essential that it is tied in to real organizing on the ground, and they're dumping huge amount of money because they're not talking to their base. They're not they largely aren't doing a lot of the work that needs to be done. So we can't compete. And especially when you're talking about an organization, you have to understand that Facebook's ad model is made, one, to seem cheap and affordable, and two, to make sure you have to do it forever, right? So if you are at 1,000 and you pay to get to 1,500 on your next post, the way Facebook's algorithm works is it expects you to hit 1,500 on your next post organically or with paid. And if you don't, it's going to punish you. So now your original reach is down to 900. The next one, it's going to expect you to get to 1,300. And when you don't, now you're down to 700, right? Now you're scared because you're seeing your reach drop and you pay again. Boom, you're back up to 1,500. Well, they expect you to do it without them paying. So, that's the trap. That's the trap that they want to get you in when it comes to with ads. So be very, very wary of Facebook ads, right? They are made to bankrupt you. They are made to keep you locked in. And most small organizations, even if it's $10 a day, can't afford $300 a month on social media ads. And so, there you go. I see Dario Bianco asked, how about polling your followers and getting their opinion? I talked about that earlier. So one of the key roles of a social media manager is getting more contacts, getting social media followers converted into contacts for which we have a real, contact source, like an email or a phone number. So not only can you get your supporters' opinion, but that allows you to have actual direct contact to them. You put out that poll. How do you feel about this issue? You share a link. They click it. They give you your email. They give you your opinion, and now you can go and reach out to them. Whereas when they were just someone who had liked your Facebook, it was a lot harder to reach out directly to them. So, combine if you don't, with not reinventing the wheel, if you've got a news story you want to share, maybe sometimes you share the party position on it, right? Sometimes there's things where Greens have been right for a long, long, long time, right? We've supported things like Medicare for all for decades, cutting the military budget for decades. So these are things where we do want to trumpet our position, but other times maybe you want to use a survey or use a poll and boost your engagement by getting those link clicks and commentary and things, and then two, you can get that contact, you can convert somebody over, and you can actually start to bring them into the organization. So that's good. So back to the ads, and just to reiterate, if you've got an event and you're trying to turn people out, maybe you pay for an ad, and you understand that it's going to hurt you. There were times during the campaign that we paid for ads, and every time we paid for an ad, everyone knew I was loudly going to say, well, you're cutting off our foot to do this. And it was just an accepted thing. We knew that by paying for those ads, we would be punished in our reach and things like that. So that's Facebook. Content, or consistent quality content. Just consistent content is the most important thing you can do. Most grassroots sized organizations should be posting 1 to 3 times a day max. But try to hit that once a day, right? Try to hit it, and make you can. So think about when are you using Facebook? When are people using Facebook? Try to be efficient with it. That generally means hitting people before work, right? Just 7-8 a.m. Hitting people on the lunch hour, and then hitting people after dinner. After they've gone home, they've had dinner with their family, and now we might be sitting around staring at our phone. So make sure you're targeting those areas and try to hit once a day. I'll talk about scheduling programs and things in a bit, but scheduling it makes it really easy. You can go in and you can set up a week worth of 1 post a day. You're doing your minimum for their algorithm. You're getting, having consistent content, and then that leaves you time during the day that you can still go out and see that news article, respond to current events, things like that. Being quick and topical is always good, and memes go crazy. So if you get a funny meme idea, then go for it. Twitter, like I said earlier, is whereas I just said 1 to 3 max on Facebook. Twitter, most grassroots organizations can probably post 12 times a day. No worries. You can get even more if you're getting into discussions and engagements. I will say, I know Trump did it, but Trump isn't exactly a good role model. So think about when you're posting. Like I had said before, a 3 a.m. tweet doesn't reach anybody, right? A 3 a.m. tweet's lost in the morning tweets. The same for Facebook. Once something's posted on Facebook, it gets a little boost early on, but then it kind of reaches what it's going to be. So posting late at night on Facebook isn't the greatest idea, because by the morning it's all going to get lost. So you might as well have posted the thing at 7 a.m. rather than 10 p.m. the night before. So, Twitter, you can post more. A really key thing is being early into the fray on issues, right? Being and continuing to engage, right? So one of the ways, so when you see the Washington Post posts an article, and no one's gotten, a progressive or a socialist perspective in there, get it in really fast, because one, if you're early, you're going to be on the top of the list on Twitter, and people are going to see it. You're going to get more likes, and then it's going to keep it up there. So being early is really essential, and then continuing to engage. Right, Twitter is not a post it and forget it place. So there's that. And then I'd said earlier, the really key power, in my opinion, to Twitter is that you have a direct link to decision makers, journalists, corporations, people and groups that actually have an impact on the world. So Twitter is a place where you can do more effective direct market or direct lobbying digitally. What you can flood people, people's Twitter feeds and things like that. There are tools like Hootsuite that let you do it, where you choose the Twitter handle and it'll write the tweet and everything. But that's one of the big things on Twitter. When there's a news story out, you can tag the author and get your alternative perspective out there, and maybe they pick it up. The same for doing the direct lobbying and things like that. Instagram, like I said, it's much more curated. So 1 to 2 posts a day, max. Very visual centric or short videos. Um, and they have good live streams, but it's a little exclusive. You can only I don't know of anywhere that gets to them and other systems. You kind of have to stream on Instagram and only Instagram. Um, Instagram is great if you've already got an existing graphic designer, things like that. If you're not confident in your graphic design or things like that, um, maybe not. Instagram might not be the place to start because um, it's a very visual platform, and that's by design. Uh, I said earlier with TikTok, you know, uh, most green locals that I know should go talk to their young folks, but rather than just trying to jump in. TikTok is a video based platform. Um, Short videos reaches lots and lots and lots of young folks. It really rewards, wittiness and being clever and being funny, being creative with the many tools they have to edit videos and things like that. So that's TikTok. YouTube, has become a major social media source. It's yeah, obviously it's video, but it's can I tell? Most people watching right now are watching on YouTube. Um, it's a major source for engagement. If you're doing live streams like this, it's huge. I'll get live streaming stuff in a bit, but so it's huge. You can run ads. I don't have. I couldn't find data, but Trump claimed that he was going to flood YouTube with ads on election day. But I couldn't find the data on whether that happened and how much he spent and things like that when I was looking. The other side of YouTube and ads is there's people like me who pay not to have them. So I I have YouTube Premium or Red or whatever it's called these days, and so you can pay to not have it, to not see the ads. Um, so that's a general kind of overview. There's a lot of discussion, and the discussion is 100% on point in general that people are, Greens and progressives are putting way too much emphasis on social media and way too little emphasis on organizing. We need to be in the streets. We need to be talking in our communities. We need to be building relationships. I used to work as a community organizer, and um, you know, the largest voting bloc almost every election is non-voters, and they're largely not apathetic. They're alienated. They're tired of politicians lying to them. They're tired of uh, being complicit in their own oppression. They're tired of voting, for people who are harming them. And sometimes sometimes you vote for someone who will harm you less, but they're frustrated and tired of of voting for their own destruction. And so I remember when I was a community organizer in 2012, I was working for a national for SEIU, and they wanted us really pushing people to oppose to protest on Romney's nomination. And I kept trying to tell them, the people in my neighborhood, the 15,000 doors that we've knocked in my town of 110,000, those people aren't going to vote for Romney. They're not going to vote, right? They're going to stay home because they have had a Democratic president. They have had a Democratic governor. They have had, the Democrats, they've gotten a worse lot year after year after year under the Democrats. And I live in Illinois. I'm in a very blue state. So the danger wasn't that they were going to vote for Romney. The danger was that they were going to stay home, and they were. So people are tired of it. People want a truly new path, which is why it's really important as Greens and as independent socialists that we aren't just a gradation. of the Democratic Party. If we're just 2% left of Bernie Sanders, why not follow Bernie? Why not fall in line with Bernie Sanders? It's 2%, right? And that was there was a substantive difference with Howie's campaign, where we were running an eco-socialist campaign that called for socialization of major industries, that called for a $42 trillion Green New Deal. So it's really, really important that we differentiate ourselves, and that we offer a real solution. And if we do that, people will start listening. But at the same time, the people in the people in frontline communities, people in working class communities, people in Black and brown communities, they've been told lies every few years, right? People come in and tell them what they're going to do. They have no reason to trust a politician. Republican, Democrat, Green, Socialist, it doesn't matter. They have no reason to trust a politician. It's not a rational thing for them to do, right? So if we want to break through that, and we have to break through that, the non-voters are the key to independent socialist growth, right? They are the absolute key to it. We have to build relationships, and that means not just coming out in the election, right? I saw someone ask about 2024 earlier. The work to do better in 2024 is right now. It's right now. It's building green locals. It's building our infrastructure. It's growing our membership. That's the key. And to do it, it's not about doing that is not done through social media posts. It's been said, knocking on doors. It's done by knocking on doors. It's done by talking to people. It's done by showing up when there's a struggle in your community, putting your feet on the ground and your skin in the game, right? That is what grows the party. Social media is a tool to do it, and we really, really need to understand that if we're going to have any hope. That said, if when you are out there on the ground doing it, make sure that people know you're doing it. I know a lot of Greens that have great workshops, that have great presentations, that bring on amazing people, and only the 3 people in the room got to see it, right? Only the few people that showed up got to see it, right? Make sure you're streaming it like this, right? If you're not streaming it, make sure you're recording it and uploading it to social media. Get that that information out. The Green New Deal is about I think 4 times bigger than Bernie's. Lies. So there's tools out there that can help you do that. We're on a platform called StreamYard right now. Let's see if I can find it. Powered by StreamYard. We don't have that up there, but you can use StreamYard for free. If you do, you'll have that little powered by StreamYard guy. But for $15 a month, you can have none of it. We use StreamYard, like I said, right now. It's going to Facebook, it's going to YouTube, it's going to Twitter, and it's going to Twitch. Cat's coming. Hi. This is Mikhail. Mikhail's going away. So you can use StreamYard. Like I said, you can use it. Starts for free, and you can pay to get things like like that watermark taken off. There's also OBS Studio, which is another free one. So make sure if you're doing good work, you've got to let the world know, and social media is a way to do it. Facebook especially. Image is better than text. Video is better than image, and streaming is better than video, right? In the Facebook world, video is king and streaming is God, according to their algorithm, right? So if you're gonna, I always get in debates with Greens where they say, well, let's do it on Zoom. And I always ask, what are you going to get out of Zoom that you can't get out of a stream where you can reach more people? So it's important that we get ourselves out there. Social media is a key part to it. And then, so there's StreamYard and there's OBS Studio, are two tools that you can use to do that. I did a workshop last week or last month. Um, it's on our Facebook and our YouTube, um, and it goes. I get into a lot more systems. So if you go look for those systems workshops, they get a lot of they get a lot deeper into some of these tools you can use. Um, Another tool pair I want to bring up is I'd said earlier, scheduling of things is really important. Um, it helps take the rush out of it. We're always better if we're not shooting from our hip, because greens are because we are ran by overworked volunteers. We're pretty much always shooting from our hip, and that's never an accurate shot. That's never an effective shot. So having a scheduling program really helps you uh, work out, that get it done and get it pointed in the right direction, and make it more manageable. Um, you can sit down for spend an hour, schedule a week out, and you don't have to worry about it for another week. Apart from responding and things like that. So my favorite tool for doing that is called Hootsuite. For years, I've been at pushing, telling people to use Hootsuite. They just recently changed their pricing plan, and it basically made them useless for most grassroots organizations. Um, it used to be for free, you could schedule up to 30 things at a time, and when something posted, you got a free slot. With that pricing plan, most small organizations could use it for free, um, and it could do everything they needed, getting all the different platforms at once. Um, the new pricing plan, free, only gets you um, 5 scheduled posts. So you can't even really do past a day if you're posting to multiple platforms. There used to be a $15 a month version, but they upped it to 50. So at $50 a month, I don't think most grassroots organizations could make that work. If you can, again, absolutely love Hootsuite, but their recent price changes have kind of priced us out, which is really, really common. We're often really priced out of good tech, so we've got to do with what we can. An alternative to Hootsuite is called Later. You can find it at later.com. Similar idea. It can post to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, a couple other things all at once, where you can write copy for one and post to them all at once. You get a nice schedule view where you can see things, where you can plot things out, right? So you can know what's coming up in the next week. The other good thing about scheduling is it kind of forces you to start having it forces you to start having these forward-thinking conversations, right? When you've got a schedule that you can make, it says, "Oh, now you're saying, well, what am I going to post this week?" Instead of getting up in the morning and goes, "Oh God, I've got to post today, and I don't know what I'm going to post." So now you're in a panic and you're just trying to find something. You're never going to take the time to start plotting out what a real social media strategy might look like for your local organization. So the in addition to making it easier for you to be having consistent quality, um, it helps you start thinking long term, because you've got the systems in place to allow you to deploy long term. Um, John H., that is 100% in every single aspect of the of the progressive left organizing, right? People often complain that PayPal is an awful right wing company, and they are. Stripe is their main competitor. They're ran by progressive Democrats, basically. But the reality is, and people, why isn't there a green or a socialist payment processor? Well, to be a payment processor, we're probably talking about, a capital startup of hundreds of millions of dollars to begin taking, insuring, protecting people's financial transactions. Um, it's just not, that obviously I went with the biggest possible, you know, system alternative that we have. But it's just not possible given current resources for us to build something like that. Getting down to smaller scale, like building our own, leftist Hootsuite. It's totally doable. We just need the coders and we need centralization of those coders. Right now, we don't have, there's a contact management system called Civi CRM that is open source and technically free, but you got to pay for hosting. You've got to pay for a few. There are costs, um, but it takes a big lift to make it work. It's what we in the campaign we collected money, we donations through it. We did all of our volunteer forms through it. We connected it to our phone banking system, things like that. We were using it effectively, but looking at it now and the dream of being able to give it to to the Green Party, to Green locals to start using it. The reality is they don't have the the overwhelming majority don't have the tech expertise to run it. So what it needs is probably tens of thousands of dollars of investment uh, through coders or through volunteers that could minimize that cost to actually develop it into something. Um, so yeah, and John H. Nation Builder is absolutely awful. I am proud to say that I just moved Illinois off of it. We're paying now a third of what we were paying for Nation Builder using a system called Action Network. You can see that in one of my previous what is a resource workshop that I did on it's on our YouTube for how is YouTube. But yeah, these systems are very expensive, um, and the problem with open source is that open source is often less user friendly. It's harder to use. Cassandra 100%. Nation Builder Nation Builder uh, exemplifies the saying "Jack of all trades, master of none." They do everything. They do databases pretty well, but they're not user friendly, and they do everything else poorly. Their web design is awful. Their engagement tools are clunky. None of it's easy to use. So, yeah, it's a problem. And the things that they say they do, like Facebook scraping, don't work very well, right? So it ends up that you've got 20 of one person because it's not successfully scraping them, which means it's not effectively building your list. It's just cluttering it. Um, so yeah, the problem with open source is that um, it often takes some know-how. It often is a little clunkier. It often um, you know takes a little bit of patience to learn, and people don't. So it's a balancing act. And like I said, a lot of these systems were being priced out of. So hopefully we've got a lot of Greens and a lot of socialists going out and learning coding so that they can build us these things, right? So we can have our own canvassing apps, so we can have our own, social media management apps that aren't costing us an arm and a leg. But and those social media apps are complicated because you got to integrate with um, all those, you got to work with Facebook and Google and Twitter and all the different ones. And it's a lot, a lot of work that you need to have a lot of knowledge and skill for. Um, so yeah, kind of got a little off topic on when we got to the end in the systems and I started responding to kind of systems commentary in the chat. But I will, I'm going to we hit an hour. I'm going to start wrapping it up. If anybody's got any, last minute questions, throw them in there. But like I said, the real key for us, um, just to recap, the real key for us is to put in the work to have organic growth on social media, which will let us get access to more people. But none of that matters if we're not funneling them into a real organization, right? So a lot of your work, and don't be afraid to ask for money. I didn't say this earlier, but Greens are too afraid to ask for money, right? Greens are the general rule is something like 20% of your posts should be direct donation asks. So don't make sure you're doing it. Come up with clever ways to do it. In Illinois, we just had this great idea that we were asking people to donate based on bill numbers, right? So support RCV by donating 1785 to support SB 1785, which was the RCV bill, and we made a few $100s off that, right? So get creative like that. Howie does $15 Fridays. Have a regular weekly donation ask, that kind of thing. But and also when you do that, it took off one of your days, right? You need to post at least once a day. Well, one of them scheduled because it's a consistent thing. So the key for us is doing the work, to slowly grow organically on social media, but making sure that it's all plugging back in, that it's all directing towards, real on the ground work. Organizing cannot be replaced by social media. Social media is a tool specifically for supporting the work of organizing, right? It's not the other way around. When you say go like us on Facebook. That's not an organizing move. That's kind of a communications move, right? Like us on Facebook so you know what's going on. So you should make sure that when you're doing your social media work, that you're always cognizant of that the purpose of this is to get people involved in your organization, get people supporting your issues, get people supporting your work, and get people organizing, under your banner. So that's what we really need to focus. Where can developers find projects that need done and volunteer to take them on? You can volunteer. So it depends on what we're looking at. We're a grassroots party, so I would always tell people to start with their state or local parties, right? If you don't have a local party, talk to your state party. Almost every state party I know could use some real systems work, could use some people that know how to do data work, analyze data, could use some people that know how to build, well functioning and beautiful websites that will, bring people in, that could absolutely use people that can do graphic design work, can do video editing, and can do that kind of stuff. So, you can always start down. I would always say, start with your grassroots. Start with what's closest to you and engage there. You can also volunteer at gp.org. And make sure when you're volunteering somewhere that you in the comments or somewhere flag, try to flag the thing you want to work on explicitly in a comment box or something. Because a lot of time volunteers forms are like, just have a bunch of check boxes. And to be honest, as someone who receives them, people go through and they click every single one, right? And I'm like, well, do you want to do phone banking or social media or video editing? Or you can't do them all, right? There's just not enough hours in the day. So if you're going to, if you're volunteering with an organization and you're going through a form on the internet and not talking directly to someone, then make sure you explicitly say what you want to work on, right? The Illinois Green Party has a defunct Civi CRM install that we've been told is the largest in the world. It is every registered voter in Illinois, but it is defunct because we just don't have the people. We just don't have the people with the expertise to operate the Civi CRM database of that size. So if someone came into our volunteer form and said, uh, that um, that they knew Civi CRM. I think it's on Drupal. They knew Drupal. I would immediately send them, to the people that run that and get them involved. So if you tell people what you want to do, it's a lot easier than being vague and waiting for us to get there in the conversation. You can also go to greensocialist.org, which is greensocialist.net, which is the organization that has spun out of Howie's campaign, and we have a sign up form there that I believe there's an option to say you want to work on web tech and that kind of stuff, which would then get you plugged in with me and our campaign manager who oversee a lot of that work. So I've seen some discussion about registered greens. So it depends what state you're in. In Illinois, we don't have party registration. So there's no such thing as a registered green here. Other states have them. If you're trying to start a local, I would start with your state party and ask them for a list. Hopefully they can give you a list of greens in your area. I live in a state capital, and it's been very hard over the years to keep a local active here. The largest employer is the state, and most of those jobs are gotten through nepotism, or people have some kind of relationship with with one of the parties that kind of makes them hesitant to get involved. But when we're presently looking into 2022 and 2024, having another go at really pushing a strong Green Party in my area, and my state party is able to easily give me all the contacts that we have in my county and the surrounding areas. So start there. You can always has been kind of suggested do an end around. In Illinois, you actually can't get voter rolls unless you're a campaign or a party. But a lot of other states you can. So you can just go look up, find the registered greens in your area and start knocking on doors, start having conversations. Get your core group of people together and start building. So yeah, there's that. Lou messaged me offline off call about Action Network. I can talk a lot about Action Network. So yeah. And I think the key here is the answer to all these questions is on the ground organizing. So it's really, really important to know to keep in mind that posting something on Facebook without having an organization to back it is kind of a smokescreen. It's a myth. But social media can be a very, very powerful tool for us. If we use it efficiently, if we use it effectively, if we use it with an understanding that we need to use it to grow our lists, and from there, Mikhail's back. We need to grow our lists, and then from there, we need to actually do the work of onboarding and organizing, and building a party that can elect thousands into the 2020s. So I'll end it there. If anybody has questions, you can email me at chris@howiehawkins.com. This is Mikhail, who is very insistent on attention. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good evening.